So Loki and I are by a bunch of mushrooms, and I've got my cage. So I'm going to read page 85 of Silence. There's a marvelous story in this book about how Cage, in his early days of collecting mushrooms, presented a dinner to some friends, and everybody got extremely ill because they weren't edible mushrooms, they were toxic. And this is the thing, one has to be very careful of mushrooms. But John Cage actually became an expert in fungus, and he regularly collected wild mushrooms all his life. And he was so expert that he took part in a games show, which he won, with mushrooms, not music, but mushrooms as his specialised subject. So here's something that he says about mushrooms and silence. I'm afraid I've got no index in this book, so I'm just reading from a page that I managed to find that is about mushrooms. It's quite fun. Cage says, Dorothy Norman invited me to dinner in New York. There was a lady there from Philadelphia who was an authority on Buddhist art. When she found out I was interested in mushrooms, she said, "Have you an explanation of the symbolism involved in the death of the Buddha by his eating a mushroom?" I explained that I'd never been interested in symbolism, that I preferred just taking things as themselves, not as standing for other things, as a typical Cage comment, that things should just be viewed objectively as they are. But then a few days later, while rambling in the woods, I got to thinking. I recalled the Indian concept of the relation of life and the seasons. Spring is creation, summer is preservation, fall is destruction, winter is quiescence. Mushrooms grow more vigorously in the fall, the period of destruction, and the function of many of them is to bring about the final decay of rotting material. In fact, as I read somewhere, the world would be an impossible heap of old rubbish were it not for mushrooms and their capacity to get rid of it. So I wrote to the lady in Philadelphia. I said, the function of mushrooms is to rid the world of old rubbish. The Buddha died a natural death. Well, that's an interesting take on mushrooms and the Buddha. I'm not going to comment on that, but I'm going to show you some mushrooms